All right, well, I'd like to welcome everybody to this session of what is normally the BBS graduate student seminar. But our guest speaker today finished his graduate student seminar days quite a while back, and so we won't make him relive those moments, basically. And I was actually going to start this announcement by saying, or this seminar by saying, our guest speaker needs no introduction, but I figured I would introduce him anyways. This is Dr. Ranjit Kudali. Dr. Kudali is an associate provost for research and graduate education at Western Kentucky University, overseeing the Office of Research, Creative Activities in the Graduate School. He has he's a chemist by training, and many of you will remember him as being a professor of chemistry here at USD, as well as the dean of the graduate school as well. So he has a very strong science career, having published over 125 peer-reviewed articles, and he is also the co-director of the UST Neuroscience, Nanotechnology, and Networks grant, or the N3, as a lot of you know. He continues to work on that and helping to advise students that are within that program. He also serves on the Graduate Record Examination Board, or GRE board, the TOEFL board as the chair-elect, and the Midwestern Association Graduate School Executive Committee as chair, and on the Master's Committee of the Council of Graduate Schools. So he's very involved in both STEM and in both graduate education, and he's going to talk to us today about the my individual development plan, or myIDP plan, that many of us are using either by choice or by programmatic requirement as part of their graduate education. And so without any further delay, Dr. Kudali, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Burrell. It's always a pleasure to talk to graduate students, including at the USD. So today I'll share my insight about my IDP workshop and how it can provide a structured pathway for an individual to do a self-assessment of skills, interests, and values, such that they can use that knowledge to identify opportunities for their career. So that's the goal, is to inform you about my IDP, and then each of you will need to think about using the self-assessment tool that is free, and I'll run you through those tools. So moving forward, this slide gives you data about the individuals who have a doctorate degree broadly in science, engineering, or health, and who are in academia. So on an average, it's about less than 20%. So less than 1 in 5 PhD students end up in academia, which means that there are a number of opportunities for each of you to think about during your graduate studies, plan during your graduate studies, and be competitive for your dream job. And today's workshop is going to help you with tools towards that goal. Moving forward, here is a slide that I would like you to think for a moment or two and put them in the chat feature. When you think about STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and math, what kind of jobs are available from your perspective? It could be titles that you could write in the chat box, or it could be specific industries that you are thinking of working. So I'll give it a minute or so. Please think about it and write what comes to your mind about titles that an individual might hold with a STEM master's or PhD degree, or industries that the STEM recipients are working. So please go ahead and populate your chat. Krista writes regulatory affairs. It's not a surprise knowing her interest. Thank you, Krista. So I welcome medicinal chemists. Thank you, Cole. Clinical trial coordinators. quality control. Thank you, Ben. And an individual can provide multiple responses. Titles, places, locations. Public policy. Thank you, Victoria. Science editor, excellent. One could be in the publishing industry. Public health broadly could be as part of science, engineering, and health. Technically not STEM, but it could be SEH. Absolutely. Thank you, Janika. Medical writer, again, scientific writing, publishing broadly. Wonderful. Research and development, obviously. Thank you, Li Ching. So I'm just going to show you a glimpse from this slide. So here are some of your responses are in this slide. Technical writers, journal editors, tech transfer. You could be working for a law firm with your scientific backgrounds. You could be working in PR. You could be working in funding agencies. You could be a scientific illustrator, management consultant. A lot of banks do have individuals with PhD in math and PhD in physics. And then there's one more here. You could be working in the school systems. You could be working in academia as an administrator like me, academic administration. You could work in educational research, museum, science. So there are a number of opportunities that may not immediately come to mind. And the reason being, you are working in academia and you're informed largely by your professor or by your environment. So this is why you need to keep an open mind. STEM jobs are available in a multitude of disciplines, and that is the take-home message from this slide. All right, so the question comes, how do you find your right career? One option is to take a self-assessment where you understand your skills, interests, and values. That's what I'll talk about today. And during that process, you're going to research options. You are going to identify career options. And you need to build some new skills. To be competitive, you have strengths and weaknesses. And this myIDP will help you identify your gaps and work during your graduate education to build new skills and come up with career plans. And if you have some skills that you need to hone, improve, the graduate studies is a perfect place to do so. And that will help you to apply for jobs. So that's slide number 4. And Dr. Burrell has also shared a link. And there's also biotechnology as a response to my previous question. So that's slide number 4. So moving forward, self-assessment. How could we do? We all do it. We talk to our friends. We ask them for feedback. We look for journals. We reach out to our peers and mentors. So that is informal. It takes place on a daily basis. But what we're going to learn today is about a formal individual development plan, myIDP, that is very systematic and methodical. So here, I'm going to stop for a moment, pause, and take a poll. And I'm going to launch a poll, so please look at it. Have you taken a self-assessment test? Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strength, etc. Have you ever done so in the past, is my question. So we have ten of you have participated. So I'll end the poll. I'll share the results. So about close to half of the participants today have taken. Some of you have not. So that is good. Some of you have some knowledge about such self-assessment tools. Wonderful. Thank you for the excellent feedback. So let's move on. And regarding self-assessment, what are the common things in the self-assessment as what is seen in the slide? And especially with myIDP, some of the questions that you will be forced to think about is, what do you want to do? What energizes you? Do you want to really work in the bench always? What happens if you transition to be an administrator like me? Where do you want to work? Do you want to work in academia? You want to work in a nonprofit? You want to work in the private industry? How keen are you and open to change? Do you want to shift from one discipline to another and explore new options? Are you a team player? Are you an individual? What type of tasks and activities are you immersed in that you lose complete track of time? So these are some of the larger questions that you have to keep in mind when you're doing this self-assessment. The Japanese have a term for it called ikigai, finding your passion. And the term ikigai has four attributes. It has passion, profession, mission, and vocation. Passion. What is it that you love, that you want to do, irrespective of what the pay may be? Profession. What are you good at? What is your formal training? What is mission centric? What is noble? What will help humanity? What will help a community, a society? And what is vocation? What you will be paid for. And for me, the pursuit or oversight of graduate education is something that has my passion. It is noble. It is something that I'm good at, and it also helps me pay my bill. So that is my ikigai, helping individuals pursue graduate education, because I passionately believe that it is graduate education that provides for socioeconomic advancement. And so that I have found my ikigai. It took some time. I wanted to be in academia, I was sure, but then an opportunity came at USD, and then I realized that is my calling in life. And each of you will have to do so in the coming months and years. Find your ikigai so you really put your love and labor towards that job. So this slide is talking about these structured planning tool that myIDP provides. You set some short-term goals, keeping in mind the long-term goals, and you want a team of advisors and mentors to help you. They will provide you feedback, and then you go assess and relook at your short-term goals. So it's an iterative process, this planning process. So it's a highly structured tool that will help you achieve your short-term goals and long-term goals. So what is myIDP and what will it help you? It will help you identify career goals and come up with a step-by-step plan. It is a four-step plan. One, you do an assessment, you will understand and evaluate your own skills and interests. Then you'll explore the career opportunities indicated in myIDP. You can augment that by reaching out to your mentors, by telling them your interests and values, and then you set goals. You set goals and you follow through with actions. And then you discuss your goals constantly with your mentor, so this way you can get feedback and you can realize your dream job. So I'll pause here for a moment and take poll number 2. So just bear with me as I come up with poll number 2. The poll number 2 is for the students, and it's fairly simple. It's a yes or no. For the students in the Zoom session, as of now, do you know your career plans? And it's nothing to be ashamed if you don't know. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. So about of the 75% who participated, I'll share the results here. About more than half of you know your career plans, which is good. And some of you have an open mind. You're probably new to graduate studies and you're still exploring. That is perfectly fine. That's wonderful. Stop the sharing. I know there are a few faculty, but perhaps far too less enough. But since I have the poll, I'm going to launch. And this is meant for the faculty. For the faculty, do you know of the career plans of your advisees? I can't answer this poll since I'm the host, and so there was only one faculty, and so the response was yes. So the reason I put these two polls is for the reason that both the students, the advisees, and the research advisor and mentors will have to work together to help in the planning of the goals of the students. It is a teamwork where the student does an assessment, identifies skills and interests and values, and shares that with the research mentor, and the research mentor helps the student hone the skills, address any gaps, and works collaboratively to help the student with your career goals. So both the faculty and the student must know the career goals of the students. That's very critical and important from my perspective. So in this structured planning process, you're doing an assessment. I'll have some screenshots later on. Then there's an exploration phase because you're going to be given several options that you may want to consider, and then you're going to set goals. And then you're going to plan that in conjunction with your advisors and your team that may include mentors outside of your university. All right, so the three main elements of the My Individual Development Plan are captured in this slide. It is skills, interests, and values. And skills is just to identify what areas are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Interests are what you enjoy doing, as I had indicated in a previous slide. And values, what are the values you stand for? What are your core values? What is important for you that is non-negotiable, if you will? And what are the outcomes you're anticipating? So what I'm doing in the next few slides are taking screenshots from myIDP. I will share this PowerPoint with Dr. Brian Burrell, and he can share the slides with all of you. One goes into this link, and it is free, and you set up an account. So the screenshot will look like something that is indicated on your left. If you look at the very left, you'll see an assessment portion, skills, interests, values. You'll see a career exploration phase, goals, and plan that was captured in a previous slide. So the first thing you'll do is create a free account and do a self-assessment, and we'll see what the assessment components are in the next slide. This myIDP was developed primarily for biomedical scientists, so it has an emphasis on STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and math, but more so related to natural sciences such as biology, medical sciences, a little bit of chemistry. And so this does not particularly lend itself value to math graduate students, but nevertheless it captures the assessment related to scientific knowledge, research skills. It also includes professionalism, communication, and other attributes to be successful, such as management and leadership, career planning, responsible conduct of research, etc. So there's 7 elements to the scientific skills. This myIDP was developed by Dr. Cynthia Furman from University of Massachusetts. Actually, Dr. Furman, myself, several folks from NSF, from the Council of Graduate Schools, will be talking about myIDP at a national conference in Tampa Bay in November. And so we are trying to assess the utility of myIDP for master's students in addition to doctoral students. So in the scientific assessment, this is what you will be providing an assessment. This is a Likert scale from a scale of 1 to 5, so it is slightly subjective at the very beginning. And so you may not know where to or what number to give based on likely deficient, highly deficient, 1 to highly proficient. So you may have to reflect upon some of your choices and come back and make adjustments, and that is perfectly fine. Scientific knowledge, research skills, there are several attributes that you will mark in order to identify and complete the self-assessment. So these are screenshots that you will encounter when you log into this myIDP. And once you complete a scientific assessment, the system will prompt you with, based on your responses, areas that you're highly deficient, as indicated in the slide, and highly proficient as well. So this is a screenshot that I've taken from a presentation. So you'll get an idea of what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and you will need to work with your research advisor to identify opportunities to address the ones that are highly deficient. The ones that are on your 1, 2, and 3 is where you will need assistance from your faculty, from your program, from your department, and from your institute. And that's what is the optimal plan for you to hone your skills and overcome your deficiencies. So that's the assessment regarding skills. The next one is the interest assessment. And so let us see what this entails. I have not taken a screenshot in the interest of time. Again, you will answer questions related to some of these that are indicated in the slide, and you'll complete this part of the assessment. And then there is a values assessment, and this is very critical. The developers of myIDP indicate that a very careful and detailed analysis of the values assessment is very critical, because this is going to define what kind of environment you want to work in, what are the tasks that you would like to do, what you would like to avoid. And so this is something that we ask you to put some time, thought, reflect, and then complete this assessment values. I've taken a screenshot of this just because it's very important, and here are some of the questions that you will be prompted to provide a response to. So once you complete these skills, interest, and assessment, you will go to the career exploration. Depending on your response, you will be prompted with some career fits. Now, based on my experiences and my interactions with graduate students, the career fit option requires some work. It is somewhat broad in nature, but nevertheless it is a starting point for you to think about some of the career fits that the system has identified. So there are several options under the career exploration. So here it'll, for example, a screenshot here provides how much a science policy career path fits with your interests and skills match. So based on your responses, it provides a percentage of skills and interests. The values are a little bit subjective, so it always prompts for consider your values. And so I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'm going to take poll number 4. Just give me a moment. This is for the students. So the question is, have you discussed your career plans with your advisor at any time? Yes or no? Wonderful. There are about 68% participation. I'll end the poll and I'll share the results. So here are the results. About 6 of the 11 respondents, 6 of them said yes, wonderful, great, and 5 of you have said no. It is always important from my perspective for a student to complete a self-assessment, use a tool such as myIDP, and discuss that with the mentor. So this way the mentor knows your career plans and can guide you with opportunities available within the program, within the department or the institution or outside, and help you with a structured pathway regarding your career. I'm going to use poll 5. It is for faculty. Likewise, the faculty will also need to discuss career options with the advisees. So it is helpful for both the student and the faculty to also know of the interests of the student, so this way the faculty can be mindful of the courses that he or she can advise to the student, the opportunities to pursue internship, the opportunities to help with transferable skills such as communication, working collaboratively and collegially, working to being culturally aware and responsive, etc. Wonderful. So the career fits is something that is prompted based on your skills and interests match. Moving forward, the system also provides with some reading materials and articles, general articles. So for example, this was a science policy match, and so careers at nonprofits, etc., are shared by the myIDP just as a starting point. It's not exhaustive, but at least it gives you some idea about what it takes to go into the profession and what fellowships may be available, etc. And then I'm scrolling to the very bottom, choosing a career path under career exploration. And then you have options that it identifies. For example, science policy, one could be a lobbyist. You could apply for a congressional fellowship, work with legislators, and then develop science policies. Or one could also be a professor. You could, that was another option based on the skills and interest assessment. And here, working in a research intensive or R1 institution was an option. And so one will need to be a postdoc. One will need to know how to secure independent funding. So those are some of the goals that will help an individual become a professor. So I'm transitioning now to how to make a career plan. So we have seen what myIDP does. You have seen what a skills assessment entails. There is an interest assessment, and there is a values assessment, which is at the heart of the myIDP. So in order to make a very structured career plan, the myIDP is a very good starting point. It provides you with some options for career fits, for exploring some careers that sound very interesting to you. So essentially during your planning phase, after you complete myIDP, you will determine what skills you have. And in order to get to where you want to be in terms of your career, you will also identify your gaps, areas in which you are not proficient or you're deficient in. So you will determine skills that you need to find your dream job. And you will need to hone some of the skills to build your resume so that you become a competitive candidate. So the question comes, how can you build skills during your graduate studies? You could take courses, or you could acquire micro-credentials. It could be a set of courses. For example, in the USD N3 program, one could take micro-credentials in leadership, in business analytics, in teaching, pedagogy, and a suite of other options, including public policy courses from political science, for example. You could acquire new knowledge by attending webinars, conferences, classes, so that you can learn new skills, technical and transferable skills. You can do voluntary work in a committee within the university or outside. You can pursue internship opportunities, fellowships, anything that will augment beyond what you're doing as part of your master's or PhD program. So these are the ways to build your skills. So this slide is just a summary. You're doing an assessment piece as part of the myIDP, skills, interests, values. You're exploring the career options. You're going to review your assessment, identify your career paths, identify gaps, and then you're going to plan towards your career advancement, and you're going to work with the mentoring team to help you during the planning phases. I have one slide about goals, and this is a commonly used acronym, SMART. When you set your goals during your planning phase, please be very specific. Your goals should also be measurable, you should know whether you completed your goal or not. It should be action oriented, meaning that you have to pursue an action, do something to acquire the skills or bridge the deficiencies that you have. You have to be realistic. You have to be practical, pragmatic, and you're bound by time. If you want to go into a certain career path and you know what it takes, you have to complete certain courses or complete some experiences like internships. So you acquire these skills, so it has to be also time bound. So this is a good acronym to think about: a SMART goal: specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time bound. So I have a couple of slides that I have found it to be very useful, and this is drawn from the Boston University Professional Development and Postdoctoral Affairs. This slide 25, pertains to students. The next slide also has boxes like this, but it is for faculty. I'll start from the upper left: skills assessment. Once you complete your myIDP, you will know what skills you have. Something that you're great, highly proficient, those fives; something not so high but still good, fours and threes, and then you'll know what the gaps are. That is number 3, decide skills. What skills do you need to build? You're also going to, during the process, do your values assessment and interest assessment, and then you will know what are your career options that you're interested in, what are you passionate about. I talked about ikigai. What is your ikigai? And finally, the number 4 is professional development. What does your program, your department, or institute provide to hone your skills? And that is where you'll need to talk to your research advisor, to your graduate coordinator or director, your dean, associate dean at your institute, to see if something cannot be done at a program or departmental level, it has to be done at an institutional level. So this is a great table that I like for students to actually do something, an action. So this way you are working towards building your skills. Likewise, I said this is a team activity, and you need mentors, perhaps more than one, and you can have mentors outside of the university as well, professionals in the discipline. So your mentor should know what skills your mentee has and should work collaboratively to help with your career aspirations, and should understand how he or she can support. And then the role for the mentor is also to identify professional development opportunities within the program, department, or the institution. So again, this myIDP assessment requires both a faculty and a student to meet quite often, at least once every 6 months, to ensure that there is progress in a student's career path, and that any gaps in terms of skills are addressed during these conversations. I have a few links here that are quite really helpful. The first link is where the myIDP assessment can be completed. The second is individual development plan that was developed by the American Chemical Society, and it is called myIDP. That is something that I encourage chemists, students who are in chemical sciences, chemistry, and chemical engineering to take. There are other links as well that are really quite helpful for a graduate student. These are some survey results that I have copied and pasted here as part of our USD N3 assessment, and many of them found the IDP to be extremely valuable, and they found that it was very informational and it provided students with a structured path towards their career goals. We have organized numerous workshops since 2017, and this happened to be among the most liked workshops conducted by the USD N3 program. This is a final slide of the WKU campus. For those of you who have not been to Bowling Green, my office is situated atop a hill. This is at the bottom of the hill, and what you see is called the Avenue of Champions. The football field is on your upper right, and it's a glorious fall day here at Bowling Green. So that's all I have to share with you. We have plenty of time for questions, about 20 minutes for questions, and so I'll be glad to take questions, comments, feedbacks from any of you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kudali. So I'll open it up to the students, and I know we have at least one other faculty member here. If there are any questions.
Group here, so feel free to ask questions.
So I'll ask one question, which is this a one-time thing that should be done, or is it something that maybe a graduate student ought to be doing annually including with their mentor?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Dr. Burrell. So what the myIDP suggests is for the graduate students is to do this after they join a graduate program within the first year, and do it at least annually, because sometimes our experiences, a positive or a negative experience, may pivot our interests to new directions. And so my advice would be to do it at a minimal annually, but have at least meetings related to career at least every 6 months. So this way the faculty can provide feedback to the students as to what needs to be done in order to hone the skills that have been identified to be deficient by the myIDP. So the bottom line is do myIDP assessment every year, but discuss career options specifically at least twice a year. That will be a good balance to help students move along their career paths.
I have a question. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Kadali. My question is, if your PI or your mentor doesn't implement IDP, how would you propose the student or the graduate student brings up myIDP to their mentor?
So can you repeat part of the question, Alicia? So the student is going to complete the myIDP, right, Alicia? And they're going to share their assessment with their research advisor, correct?
Right.
So,
Correct.
and so it is important for the faculty to be engaged with his students in his or her group. And one of the things you may want to do as a student is to request your primary research advisor and inform him or her that you're interested in getting feedback about your career options and say to him or her that you have learned about myIDP, you've completed a self-assessment, and that you would like to discuss the results obtained from the self-assessment. So that would be a starting point. I acknowledge that not many may know myIDP. I knew of myIDP sometime in 2013, 2014, when we were going through the National Science Foundation request for proposals for the NRT, and they had made it mandatory that a myIDP is required for all students. So that is when I was alerted to the myIDP. So you're correct in a sense, not all faculty may know about what myIDP is. Not many would have done that as a graduate student because it is relatively new. So my advice would be that you complete that, you educate, inform your research advisor that this is a free assessment tool that will provide a structured pathway for identifying options for your career, and then discuss your self-assessment and seek guidance as to how some of the areas that have been identified as deficient will be can be alleviated. Now, thanks to our advocacy from the students, the BBS program now requires myIDP to be completed by all students. And Dr. Burrell has an advice, go to a grad committee for department. Dr. Burrell, you want to add to that?
Sure. I didn't want to muscle in on your answer, but for those of you who are not in BBS, it's something that you can bring to your grad committee or grad committee chair, basically. So I'm sure they're all willing to listen to that. And some funding agencies are starting to ask that these be included in. And I heard something last year, Dr. Kudali, about NIH progress reports, including that. Although I have to admit, I haven't seen that myself. So.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, we have found value, the students have found value, and they advocated for, the BBS students advocated for that to be required for the program. So I think from my perspective, in looking at the value to the students, it's very helpful.
Now, I will note that some students have, sorry, Alicia, I will note that some students have changed from one year to the next what they've put on their myIDP in terms of preferences and career goals.
Yeah, I just want to give a comment. So, Dr. Kudali, from what I saw on slide number 2 of your presentation, it looks like the STEM teaching jobs, actually, they have been declining, So my recommendation is that, the graduate schools, they need to, to provide more training to their graduate students, not necessarily, thinking about going to teach, but also to going to other career opportunities that might be available.
And that's what we are accomplishing through the NRT grant. Unfortunately, it is not for international students. So if you're an N3 fellow, you have to take 2 courses outside of your discipline. So we have N3 fellows who have taken courses in business analytics. They have taken courses from the law school related to intellectual property, IP, and patent law. We have had a student take courses from the School of Education because wants to be in academia but would like to take courses on how to develop a curriculum, etc. We have a student who actually completed a graduate certificate in nonprofit management. So our N3 fellows who are 20 plus students, if you look at their courses that they have taken non-science, I'll say broadly, non-STEM have taken courses from the Beacom School of Business, from the School of Education, from the College of Arts and Sciences, in social sciences, etc. And so we are providing that well-rounded opportunities for graduate students during their MS or PhD. And the hope is that many programs will embrace this idea and allow students to take electives so that these electives will help them with earn some credentials and skills that will help them with their career goals. So that is our hope, that some programs will relook at their program electives and find a creative way to provide for alternate careers that are non-academic in nature. Dr. Burrell, you want to add anything to it?
Muted. Sorry. No, I think you covered everything right there. And there's no reason why, if you're not in one of these graduate training programs, why you can't take advantage of the micro-credential courses that we have listed now on the GRISE website. So if you search GRISE in the USD website, you'll find the list of courses that we think about that. And one of the things that I did, that link that I threw in at the beginning of the talk, was a link for a former student of mine who got her PhD in BBS, but then got a JD and is now working in patent law. And so there are, you're right, Bernard, there are a lot of possible careers that we need to be preparing graduate students for beyond academia. All right, if there aren't any more questions, then I think I will call this to a close here and say thank you to Dr. Kudali for presenting this workshop, and he'll send out the slides and I'll send them out to me, and then I'll send them out to all you guys through your various graduate committees. So
Wonderful.
thank you very much,
Thank you
Ranjit.
very much. Thank